It happened sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning. Walter didn't feel it. He didn't cry out. His wife, Doris, was asleep beside him and had no idea anything was wrong until she reached over at 6:15 to turn off the alarm and found him unresponsive. His face had dropped on one side. His arm wouldn't move. He was breathing, but he wasn't there. She called 911 immediately. The paramedics arrived in 7 minutes, and in those 7 minutes, while she stood in the hallway of the home they'd shared for 41 years, Doris kept thinking about the same thing, his last blood pressure reading. The week before, it had been 148/71. His doctor had said it wasn't too bad for his age. He was on one medication. They were monitoring it. Nobody told Doris, nobody told Walter, that the number everyone was focused on was the wrong one, and that while they slept peacefully every night, the right number was quietly doing damage no one could see. I'm Dr. Hayes Anderson, and after 22 years in senior health, I've seen firsthand what happens to the brain when these warning signs are ignored during sleep. When the number that matters most goes unaddressed while the patient believes they're being properly managed. Promise stakes. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly which blood pressure number is most dangerous for seniors and why it's the one that rarely gets the attention it deserves. I'm going to explain what happens inside your arteries while you sleep, why nighttime blood pressure is fundamentally different from what your doctor measures in the office, and what 5 specific steps you can take starting tonight to reduce your risk. And I need to make sure you stay with me through the middle section, because what I'm about to explain about a concept called pulse pressure is something most seniors have never heard, and it may be the most important thing you learn today. Here's what most people believe. They believe that if one of their blood pressure numbers looks good, they're probably fine. They check the reading, they see that the bottom number is in a normal range, and they feel reassured. Their doctor hasn't raised any alarms. The medication is doing something. Everything seems under control. But this assumption, this deeply reasonable, completely understandable assumption, is one of the most dangerous misconceptions in senior health today. The average cardiology appointment is 11 minutes. In 11 minutes, a doctor checks both numbers, compares them to a target, and moves on. Nobody has time to explain the physiology of aging arteries. Nobody stops to say, the relationship between these two numbers changes completely as you get older, and the number we used to worry about in younger patients is not the same number we should be watching in you. That conversation doesn't happen, and patients walk out of the office not knowing that they've been measured correctly, but interpreted incorrectly. Core content. Let me explain what's actually happening inside your arteries as you age, because once you understand the mechanism, the danger becomes impossible to ignore. When you were younger, your arteries were flexible. When your heart beat, the artery walls would expand slightly to absorb the force of that pulse, and then gently recoil to push blood forward. It was an elegant system. Your arteries weren't just pipes, they were living, elastic structures doing active work with every heartbeat. But with age, and particularly after 65, arterial walls stiffen. They lose their elasticity. They stop absorbing that force. And when a stiff artery receives the full pressure of a heartbeat, that pressure doesn't get absorbed. It travels. It travels with greater force into smaller and smaller vessels, all the way to the delicate, fragile blood vessels of the brain. This is the mechanism behind most strokes in older adults. Not a single catastrophic event, a slow, years-long accumulation of pressure damage. Damage that happens quietly, damage that happens at night, damage that happens while you sleep. Now here's the number that matters. The top number, systolic pressure, is the force your heart generates with each contraction. And in seniors with stiff arteries, that number climbs. It climbs because the arterial walls can't cushion the blow anymore. Sustained high systolic pressure, readings above 140, above 150, above 160, is one of the strongest predictors of stroke, heart failure, and cognitive decline in older adults. Not the bottom number, the top number. But here's where it gets more complicated, and this is what I need you to stay with me to understand. There's a third figure that almost no one talks about, and it may be even more important than either number alone. It's called pulse pressure. Pulse pressure is simply the difference between your systolic and diastolic readings. If your blood pressure is 148/71, exactly like Walter's, your pulse pressure is 77. That is high. That is a red flag. A normal pulse pressure for a healthy adult is around 40 points. When that gap widens, when it reaches 60, 70, 80 points, it tells you something critical. The arteries are stiff. They are not absorbing force properly. And with every single heartbeat, excess pressure is traveling to the brain. Wide pulse pressure is associated with significantly elevated stroke risk. And yet most seniors never hear the term. They're told their bottom number looks fine. They go home reassured. Let me tell you about Constance, 71 years old, a retired librarian from Ohio. She came to me after her husband had spent 3 weeks insisting she get a second opinion. Her blood pressure had been running at 152/68. Her previous doctor had focused on the bottom number, 68, well within normal range, and had not escalated her treatment. When I calculated her pulse pressure, 84 points, I changed her management immediately. Constance asked me why no one had mentioned this before. I didn't have a good answer for her. Now, the sleep connection. This is where the danger becomes most acute, and it's the part of this conversation that most people find genuinely surprising. Your blood pressure is not a fixed number. It changes constantly throughout the day. It rises when you're stressed, drops when you're resting, and for most people, it dips naturally during sleep, a phenomenon doctors call nocturnal dipping. This nighttime dip is protective. It gives the brain and heart a period of reduced pressure, a chance to recover. But in many seniors, particularly those with stiff arteries, poorly controlled systolic pressure, or sleep apnea, this dip doesn't happen. Blood pressure stays elevated all night long. In some cases, it actually rises. These patients are called non-dippers, and they face dramatically higher stroke risk than patients whose pressure falls normally during sleep. The brain receives high-pressure blood flow for 8 continuous hours with no relief. The damage accumulates every single night, silently, invisibly, while the patient sleeps. And there's another phenomenon that compounds the risk, the morning surge. In the hour before and after waking, the body releases stress hormones that cause blood pressure to spike sharply. This surge, combined with nighttime non-dipping in a person with already elevated systolic pressure and stiff arteries, creates a perfect window of danger. The majority of strokes in older adults occur between 5 and 10 in the morning. This is not coincidence. This is physiology. Walter's reading of 148/71, taken at 2 in the afternoon in a clinic, told his doctor almost nothing about what happened to his pressure at 3 in the morning, and nobody thought to ask. I want to make one thing very clear before we move to solutions. If you're on blood pressure medication, do not stop taking it. Do not change your dose. Do not make any decisions about your medication based on this video. What I want you to do is have a more informed conversation with your doctor to bring up the concepts of systolic pressure, pulse pressure, and nighttime blood pressure control. That conversation could change the direction of your care. Actionable steps. Now let's talk about what you can actually do. because understanding the danger is only useful if it leads to action. The first step is to start measuring your blood pressure at home and to measure it correctly. Take readings in the morning before coffee and medication, and again in the evening before bed. Sit quietly for 5 minutes first. Use a validated upper arm cuff, not a wrist monitor. Record your results. Over 2 weeks, you will have a picture of your pressure that no clinic visit can provide, and morning readings in particular will give you and your doctor crucial information about your overnight risk. The second step is to calculate your pulse pressure every time you take a reading. It takes 5 seconds. Subtract the bottom number from the top. If that gap is consistently above 60, bring it to your doctor's attention. Show them the number. Ask specifically what a widening pulse pressure means for your stroke risk. If your doctor isn't sure, ask for a referral to a cardiologist or hypertension specialist. The third step is to protect your sleep. Sleep apnea is one of the most powerful drivers of nighttime non-dipping, and it's vastly underdiagnosed in seniors. Loud snoring, waking up tired despite a full night's sleep, or morning headaches are warning signs. If any of those apply to you or someone you love, ask your doctor about a sleep study. Treating sleep apnea can reduce nighttime blood pressure significantly. The fourth step is hydration, and this one surprises people. Many seniors deliberately restrict fluids in the evening to avoid nighttime bathroom trips. But dehydration thickens the blood and increases vascular resistance, which can raise systolic pressure and increase the morning surge. Aim to be well hydrated throughout the day, then taper fluids modestly in the 2 hours before bed rather than cutting them off entirely in the afternoon. The fifth step, and this is the one with perhaps the most direct impact on arterial stiffness itself, is consistent, gentle movement. Daily walking, even 20 to 30 minutes, has been shown in research to improve arterial elasticity over time. Not dramatically, not quickly, but steadily. Stiff arteries can regain some of their adaptability with the right kind of low-intensity cardiovascular activity. Combine that with a diet genuinely low in processed foods and sodium, and you are directly addressing the underlying mechanism, not just managing a number. Walter spent 11 days in the hospital. He recovered more function than anyone initially expected. His speech returned almost completely, and he regained most of the movement on his affected side after months of rehabilitation. Doris told me later that what stayed with her wasn't the stroke itself. It was that she had felt reassured. She had thought the numbers were being watched. She had trusted that someone would catch something if something needed to be caught. And the hardest part of that trust, she said, was that no one had failed them deliberately. Everyone had done exactly what they were trained to do. The system just never asked the right question. You now know the right questions to ask. You know which number carries the most risk for seniors. You know what pulse pressure means and how to calculate it. You know why sleep is when the damage accumulates, and what a morning surge looks like on the inside of an aging artery. That knowledge is not nothing. That knowledge is the difference between a passive patient and an informed one. I want to ask you something before you go. When you check your blood pressure, if you check it at all, which number have you always focused on? Leave your answer in the comments, because I have a feeling that most of you, until today, have been watching the wrong one. And if this video helped you see that differently, please share it with someone you love, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, who takes a blood pressure medication and believes their numbers are being properly managed. They deserve to know what you now know. In my next video, I'm going into the topic that connects to almost every mechanism we discussed today, the one underlying process that accelerates arterial stiffening, drives systolic pressure higher year after year, and quietly increases stroke risk while most seniors have no idea it's happening in their own bodies. Chronic inflammation. It's the most important conversation in senior health right now, and I'll see you there.